Today we're going to talk about the $5 trillion 0 cents flood that will cause XRP to go through the roof. Yes, you heard that right. We are seeing a big rise in worldwide M2 levels, a total of $5 trillion. 0 cents worth of new dollars are going to be injected into the world economy. And yes, you better believe it, based on past examples, this means some really great things for the whole cryptocurrency business. But XRP and other cryptocurrencies that are already in a strong position to take advantage of this liquidity and have already proven themselves to be clear market winners will have a lot more to gain than other cryptocurrencies. So that is I was filming the video today because I want to make sure that all of you are ready for this situation with liquidity and what it will look like in the future. First, I'm going to show you this very important video, and then we'll talk about what this means for your XRP bags. If you want to really understand the market, you need to know what you're looking at. That being said, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I always talk about liquidity because it affects the price of assets, so we need to keep a close eye on it. Let me show you what I mean. In the fourth quarter 2024, the last quarter of the previous year, there was less liquidity in the system. This happened before Trump took office, and it caused asset prices to drop. Since then, there has been more liquidity in the first quarter of 2025, the first quarter to begin. I'm going to use a number of charts that Michael Howell made. I'll include a link to his paid digital newsletter below in case you're interested in subscribing. He has been on my show before, and we'll also include a link to the interview that Michael and I did. Congratulations on your work down there. But this shows that it is the year 2024 and that the most money ever in circulation was $175 trillion, 0 cents. In September of that year. By the end of 2024, we went from 175, 173 to 172, 171, but liquidity was leaving the system. And you might be thinking, but Mark, the quiz is coming to an end. Now it's 2025, and January started with 171. That number clearly carried over to 171, 172, 172, 172, 172, 172, 172, 173, 170, 78. And we have a curve now where the science is still known as White House spying. And okay, we'll get back to that. That's 1 year. We were talking about the last 6 to 8 weeks, so we'll get back to that. There has been an increase in liquidity. Now you're saying, but Mark, I don't understand this because you're saying that liquidity decreased last year, but the price has been decreasing this year. But you're saying that the price is decreasing when liquidity is increasing. The current situation is beyond my comprehension. Now let me explain it in more depth. According to Michael Hall, the total amount of cash in circulation around the world as of last week was $176 trillion, 0 cents. This is a gain of $5 trillion, 0 cents, which is why the movie is called $5 trillion, 0 cents tsunami. The total amount of $5 trillion, 0 cents for the year so far has also been added. This is the amount of the price increase. There is a lag of about 10 to 12 weeks between that event and this one, which is why you don't see the link. We saw the effects of the liquidity draining out in the fourth quarter of the previous year, in the first quarter of 2025. With most of the effects happening at the end of the quarter due to the lag. The surge of liquidity that we saw this year in the first quarter will happen again in the following quarter, and we are already starting to see this happen. Here are some charts that show this. In this case, we have global equity mapped out starting in June of 21st century. And here are a few more charts that Michael made. How about just put 21 right here in the spot from now on? I've been using this chart in this area when the world was ending and everyone needed to get out of the markets in 2022 because it was the lowest point. Right here, I started making videos. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know this, where I said that there is no imminent crash in the market, which is why it is time to start making purchases. Let me explain why I am investing in new assets. And the reason is that I understood it because this was the lowest point of liquidity. The markets have been on an incredible. Furthermore, These things tend to move in cycles that last for 4 years. About 4 years ago, we had a successful run of runs in a straight line with no upward or downward movement. It is clear that we have enjoyed 4 years of consecutive successful runs this time. Let me zoom in a bit and take a closer look at the situation. I want you to keep this in mind. Over the course of the years, we have seen that liquidity was decreasing in the last quarter of 2024, but increasing in the first quarter of this year. This is what we are talking about when we talk about the $5 trillion of 0 cents that we will see in the following 6 months. But let's look at this first to see if there's another way to see this data. I'm going to zoom in a bit so that we can see this better. The Dixie, also called a dollar index, shows how much the dollar is worth compared to other currencies. This graph starts in 2019 and shows that the dollar got stronger into 2020, then it got weaker, and then it got very strong into 2022 when liquidity dried up and asset prices fell. On the other hand, when the currency got weaker, liquidity increased and asset prices rose. And we went back and forth between the two extremes. Q1, okay, let's look at this. Q4 of the previous year, all right. From the fourth quarter of last year to the first quarter this year, it has been decreasing, which is why there has been a surge of liquidity coming back in. If we look at the values of assets like Bitcoin right now, we can see that this is reflected in the same time frame. For example, Bitcoin experienced a decline at the same time as the dollar index experienced a decline. It fell to the ground as the dollar index gained strength during the previous quarter. Liquidity decreased and Bitcoin fell along with it. Okay, let's look at something that I can see here, even though we can't see it here. It seems like Bitcoin has gone through a big change recently, just like it did the 2 days before. As a result, the global supply of M2 and the global liquidity both have a big impact on the price of any given asset class. This means that if global liquidity is rising, all you have to do is wait 10 to 12 weeks, as this person said, and the money will start flowing back in. This is something that you all need to pay attention to. I really like how he's going through all of these charts and real life examples to show you exactly how that looks and how this is true with Bitcoin and XRP and almost all of them. I want to draw your attention to something very important in this case. It's possible that Bitcoin has gone from 50,000 to 1050, which is a nice little twofold increase. However, I want to draw your attention to the fact that XRP has gone up by more than 5 times in the same amount of time, correct? There is a chance that you could make some money with Bitcoin, and I do think that Bitcoin is a good investment, but if you have XRP, you can make a lot more.